Hello everybody, this is Tim Jakimowitz, and this is my final project, so it will probably be the last time that you get to enjoy such a project from me. I look forward to seeing your projects. I hope you enjoyed mine, and I hope you enjoyed this class as much as I did. Yes, I am in fact doing a little brown nosing in an effort to get a few extra points on this, so I hope that works out for me. So moving forward, this is my presentation on the humanities in my life, Tim Jakimowitz. Before we get started, I think it's important that we define what the humanities are. I've got a definition up there on the screen, but my thought on it is it's what we encounter in life, how those encounters affect us, how those encounters change us, how we learn, how we react. So as you see, I use the wording, the molding up there, and I believe that that's truly what the humanities are. It's what molds us to be who we are, how we proceed in life, how we move forward in life, and going on from there. So we'll move on to myths and humanities, which you've got Sophocles and Aristotle up there, who were two famous writers for their time, wrote stories. Myths are important in the humanities for the reason that they set morals. They install fear. It's not always the happy ending in that. It wasn't meant to be a story for pure entertainment purposes of just, here's a story, be happy at the end and move on. We've covered a lot in this class discussing is happily ever after important, and I think myths are one of the first stories that show that it's not always a happily ever after. Myths will teach us the difference between right and wrong. They would show us the consequences in life. So it was very important at that time, but just as important today. It's why they're still around, is we're still learning from them. We can still pull from them. They're almost timeless pieces of art. So as you see, I have here, the times are changing. You have a medieval castle there, which was very common in that time, and on the right, you have the Guggenheim, who we covered with Andrew Lloyd Webber in class. This is just one instance of how, whether it's storytelling, whether it's architecture, whether it's music, anything that we've covered in this class has dramatically changed over time. What's accepted, what's not accepted. And there's many people who will look at the Guggenheim and feel that that is not, a beautiful building. However, many others believe that it is a beautiful building. So whether it's more contemporary, whether it's more drastic and over the top, I think you understand how things have changed. Even in the last 100 years, our thoughts on musicals and music alone and literature, a lot is accepted now that wasn't accepted. We're constantly changing. We're constantly moving from one thing to the next. So moving on, we're going to get into my appreciation of the humanities in the modern world and what I enjoy. We're going to break these down, in categories as we move forward. One thing we're not going to hit on is theater and Broadway and so on and so forth, because that's never really been a part of my life. It's not something that I've necessarily been a fan of or been interested in. But you see that I start here. I have Beauty and the Beast up at the top, and that's an important part of my life, because when I was probably 10, 11 years old, my parents took me to Broadway. That's the only Broadway musical I've ever seen. So I included that there because that is part of my life, and perhaps the only musical I can say I appreciate. So the other topics that you see here on the screen, I'm going to hit a little bit more closely as we move forward, and we'll go from there. So music is probably the most important one of the topics that we covered in class in my life. I always feel that you can turn to music, and for whatever mood you're in, there's always music that can fit to what you're feeling or what you're thinking. Whether you want to be happy, you can listen to upbeat music. Whether you want to be sad, you can listen to slower music. I'm going to hit on love later on in this presentation, and love is definitely a very important thing in music. A lot of the bands that I have here aren't necessarily known for being the Taylor Swift type love songs that you'll hear, but love always seems to be incorporated, I think, in every band that you have here. Another important part that I have some of these bands listed for is the time of my life and the things I was going through. I connect to certain things. My parents went through a divorce, and again, we can tie that into love. But I would go see this band up in the middle here, Spring Heel Jack, on the weekends to relax and get my mind off of what was going on at home. So I think music is very important as a relaxation technique or an escape reality for a while. So moving forward, we're going to move on to literature. I'm a big reader. I've left out, a few important authors here, a few important books. But earlier on the first slide, before we got into this all, you saw The Master and Margarita, which is my absolute favorite book ever. It's something that's got me interested in Russian history, so that's had that effect in my life, which led to me to read Dead Souls over here. I recommend both of them for anybody. I'm a huge Poe fan. I'm a huge Vonnegut fan. And I just had to put Paradise Lost on there. What I've read, I enjoyed it. It's tough, but I had to throw it in there just to remind our professor that earlier this semester she had quoted somebody else for Milton's work. So she told me I got a few extra credit points for that. So let's remember that moving forward. Here we have Netflix and chill, a very popular saying in our day of age. And I'm not a huge TV fan, more of a movie guy, but I would turn to literature. I would turn to music before any of this, but I've, of course, got some popular films on here. Star Wars, of course, The Goonies, What About Bob, Breaking Bad. I think everybody can relate to that. I have Forensic Files on here. As a matter of fact, the reason that's had a big impact on my life is my father is, in fact, in one of those episodes, not as the killer, as one of the experts. He was a ballistics expert for the state of Connecticut, so it's something that whenever I go out, I always like to tell people, oh, you watch Breaking Bad on Netflix? You should watch my father. So I prefer to watch my father as opposed to Walter White on Netflix. Down the bottom, you have Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I don't know if it's good that I enjoy that so much that I thought to throw it in here, but I was trying to be honest with everybody. Art is something I just never have been able to grasp. This is a picture down in Wynwood. I've gone to Wynwood for Art Walk. I've done my best to relate to it. I've done my best to wrap my head around it. I simply just do not understand art. I wouldn't say I don't appreciate art. It's somebody's form of expression. I just can't figure out 90%, 95%, I'll even say 100% of art. I don't know what I'm supposed to be looking at here. It's cool looking, but I don't get what the message is behind it, if there is a message. It's much like theater and Broadway and that. It's just something that I've never really said, this is what I want to dive my interest into. So we're going to move on from art before I keep complaining about it. The topic that I want to hit on, that I already put a presentation together on, is love. And there's different kinds of love. There's different appreciations of love. Starting on the bottom corner here, you have a picture of me and my girlfriend. That's one type of love. Above that hairy guy with the beard is in fact me. I got in some trouble with that. I was in Mexico at the time and came back looking a little different. They didn't agree with my passport picture, but that's my best friend and I. And our love is much different than, my girlfriend and my love. Him and I have been friends now for 25 years, so it's very cool to have that kind of love in my life where it's not a romantic love, as we discussed in the love presentations. It's not, Amos. It's more, or Eros. It's not Eros. It's more friendship love. Below that is Eros love. I better say that, or she might see this and be upset with me. The picture in the middle is, I threw that in here because we talked about, divorce and how that's changed in the world. And that, as I mentioned earlier, that's a picture of me and my family at, I think, Christmas. But there will never be another picture taken like that due to, as I've discussed in my love presentation, that love doesn't always necessarily last. Sadly, it ends. It ended between my parents. My brother and I don't necessarily get along now. But so love isn't everlasting, doesn't go on forever. To the left of that, you see I started this year off talking about my love for dogs. That's my one dog, Yoshi. My love for my dogs, don't tell my girlfriend I said this, is stronger than anybody in this world. I would do anything in the world for my dogs. Not that I wouldn't for my girlfriend, but, above that, I started the year off as well. I've kind of tied everything in from beginning to end. That's a picture of my father and I at a Phillies game and Philadelphia sports. I said in my first presentation of the year, something that I'm very passionate about. I have a love for. My father's in that. He's, aside from my other best friend, my best friend as well. So I've really gone full circle with all of this. So This is a picture of my 4 dogs. That's going to wrap up this presentation. I hope that you all enjoyed this class again. I had to sneak that in there one more time, as much as I did. I hope you pulled as much from it as I did. It's funny, I play an app on the Jeopardy app on my phone, and a lot of the questions have to do with Rodgers and Hammerstein will come up a lot. Frank Lloyd Wright, who I mentioned earlier, will come up a lot. There's a lot of topics in this Jeopardy app that 4 months ago I didn't necessarily would have known the answer, whereas now I'm like, well, thanks to this class, I'm able to know these things. I have a greater appreciation for these things and a greater understanding. So I hope that everybody was able to pull out the same amount of material from this class as I was. I hope that you all have great success in the future, and I thank you for your 10 minutes of time. Good luck.